Oh, great. Hi, Talisa. Thank you so much for helping my project. I was wondering if you could say a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Felisa Maccabee. I'm currently living in Pasadena, Texas. I'm from the whopping metropolis of Orangefield, like you, Nathan. And I'm currently working for a nonprofit clinic as an LVN, doing COVID work actually right now.
Oh, what is that like?
We're on the testing end as opposed to treating. So hectic. A lot of scared people coming in, scared not just for themselves, but for their family, friends. So, but I strangely enjoy it. That's kind of what I was born to do. So I'm okay with it.
I saw a video recently about how Dubai is like open to tourists, and they give a test to everybody that comes in, and they actually show a person taking a sample, from the nose, and it in the video it seems to go back really, really far. Is that true?
It does. Now I've used several types of tests. The first test I had were swab for the throat, which is similar to if you've had a strep test done, which is not pleasant. And then the second ones I had were we call them the brain ticklers that go up pretty high because you're supposed to measure from your ear to your nose, and that's how far it's supposed to go in, which is quite a bit.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's actually going into like the sinus area almost?
Correct. Very uncomfortable. It's not quite painful, but extremely uncomfortable. Tears pouring down your face. It's unavoidable. However, recently, because of the shortage of swabs that we're having, some of the companies have been sending just regular, I call them the regulation Q-tip, like you would use at home. Of course, sterile packaging and all that. And it's just, you have to put just the cotton part in the nose, and it's not as invasive. So just as effective, less invasive, which that's part of the nerves. People coming in, they don't want that uncomfortable experience that they're seeing on the news. So I kind of tell them right out of the hat, hey, look, this is what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with the long ones. And that usually calms them down at least by 50%. So
I could imagine. So how has like the testing volume changed over like since February, I guess?
well, I started at the middle of April doing it. And at first it would be like one or two people a day. Our clinic, like I said, we are a nonprofit. And so we service the Pasadena area and we offer it for free. And at first it was very sporadic, maybe up to 5 a day. I think my biggest day at the beginning was like 9 people. And then after that, it started getting, maybe 10, 12 people, but still fairly sporadic. Within the last 2 months, it's grown exponentially. We've also opened up to do the antibody testing to see if it's not a diagnostic test. It just tells you if you've been exposed or possibly have had it in the past. And so people who haven't been exposed, haven't had any symptoms, but are curious to know, they'll do that test, and it's a 15-minute turnaround. The swabs take longer, but that's more of a definitive. And I mean, I can't keep up with the demand right now. The supplies can't keep up with the demand currently.
Oh,
So,
so you're doing like dozens a day, I guess?
one day we did 166 in one day.
Wow.
But
With
for
how many people? Three
three
people.
people over about an 8 to 9 hour period, that's pretty intense.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah. So there are super busy days and there's super kind of normal days where it's not as many. So, and right now we're dependent upon the equipment that we can get, if we can get the test, because like I said, we're a nonprofit. So we're not able to buy tens of thousands of swabs. So we kind of get put at the back of the line when it comes to distribution. So
I understand.
we can.
So, I've heard some people, they're like, hey, I don't want to get tested because I have no symptoms.
Right.
In fact, I know one person who says that at their work, they had a coworker that tested positive, and, it's been several weeks, and, she's like, I don't see a need for me to go get tested because I'm an older person. So if I had been exposed, I would have symptoms. But I understand that I mean, is it true that you can actually have it and never ever know?
That's absolutely true. I know personally of a family member that was exposed, and bless his heart, he found out he found out he was exposed via, he has two jobs, and via one job. And while he was on the phone to make his appointment to get a test, he gets a phone call from his other job saying he was exposed there. He tested positive and completely had zero symptoms, zero symptoms. So it is totally possible to be completely asymptomatic and have the virus. While that is okay for you, it is not okay, because that means you can transmit it. So while it's good that you're not having symptoms for yourself, but it's bad in the sense of you need to stay quarantined because you can possibly give it to other people.
Well,
So
and have there been cases of that, regardless of like age group? I mean, is it possible, for example, people in their 70s to be exposed to get it but not show symptoms? Or this really asymptomatic thing, is there any dependency on age? Like it
as
only.
far as I've seen personally, it could be anyone. I've had families of 6 that live together, and one person in the household will have it, test positive, have symptoms. They're staying quarantined to their bedroom. Any shared spaces, they kind of do a schedule and clean. And I've had family members that live with that person that don't get the virus. And then some do, some don't. It just depends on, I think, your personal immune system. If you have what we call in the healthcare field comorbidities, if you have underlying health issues, is basically what it is, and how well you're quarantining yourself. If you're staying in your room, you're keeping to yourself, if you're around people, you're wearing a mask, the masks are working. We're seeing studies slowly come out that showing that something is better than nothing, and it's working. So it all depends on how you're doing, how you're taking care of yourself and the people around you.
I saw a little illustration trying to explain the mask thing to people who may have trouble with it, where it was using the situation of urination. And it's like,
Yes.
if a guy urinates on somebody, and neither one of you are wearing pants, then, it's like
You're
full
both
exposure.
getting wet. Yeah.
Yeah. But
And
if
that's
both of you are
accurate.
wearing pants, that's like, I thought that was
Right.
like so brilliant.
It is. And it's a really easy way to get the illustration across, because I think people are under the impression that, okay, if I breathe on you, okay, my breath won't do anything to you. It's the droplets that the virus must be carried encapsulated in a droplet of water, for lack of a better term, in order to get into your system. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to spread that droplet. So I know a lot of people say, well, you can put up a chain link fence, but that's not going to protect you from mosquitoes. Well, if that mosquito is bigger than the hole in the chain link fence, then yes, you should be safe. So it's kind of like we're trying to get rid of those myths that, the mask, I don't wear a mask because I'm taking my own health into my own hands. It's not you have to worry about. It's the other people that you're breathing on that can get your air, your germs, that can spread the disease. And that's what we're trying to get across to people. So.
And I had one other question about, sorry to get off on this topic, but
No, that's okay.
it's so good to talk to somebody that has direct knowledge of it. And there's so much circulating out there
Yes.
that I don't want to pass up this opportunity.
No, it's totally fine.
So if you're asymptomatic and you have the disease, kind of like walk me through what the process would be in terms of quarantine. Like, when do you stop becoming able to transmit it to others, or will you always be able to transmit it to others? Like, I mean, how's that work?
So right now, I mean, everything's so new that, I mean, it kind of changes daily. The most recent information, at our clinic, we are able to be on a state call with Department of Health and Human Services, and Texas is following CDC recommendations. So we get almost all of our information through the Texas Department of Health and Human Services, as well as CDC, to follow their guidelines. The most recent guidelines regarding asymptomatic people who are positive for COVID but are showing no symptoms at all, they're saying after 10 days, if you've shown no signs or symptoms, CDC recommends getting another test just to make sure that to make sure you're negative, and then go about your life. But for that 10 days, you need to quarantine do the right things. I mean, it's hard. I know some people live in homes and it's impossible to quarantine from your family. But if you do the best you can, wear the mask, make sure your family's wearing the mask, distance as much as you can. Washing your hands is just about the best thing that you can do because it's going to kill the virus. So wash your hands for at least 20 to 30 seconds with soap. Antibacterial is great, but soap is soap. Warm water, wash your hands. If you can do that and keep the common areas clean, you have a great chance of not transmitting it to others. So that's, as of right now, they're saying 10 days, asymptomatic, but you're positive. After that 10th day, no symptoms, 24-hour fever-free, no symptoms, that kind of thing. Do another test just to confirm that you're negative. And then you're free at that point.
So what you're saying is that somebody who has it but has no symptoms, they can go and do a test and it show them as being positive. And then at some point, that what should be within 10 days or so, they could do another test and it should show them negative. And at that point, they should be not.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Because everyone's immune system works differently. So your immune system might fight that virus off immediately, and you may never have another problem with it. Some people, it might take a short amount of time and they have full-blown symptoms. So because the research is so new, this is the best information we have as of right this moment. I mean, literally this moment kind of situation. So they're trying to make it to where people aren't losing their livelihoods. So 14 days is typically the incubation period that they're seeing with asymptomatic patients. They're averaging 10 days, no symptoms. Usually you're not going to pop up symptoms. Now it does happen. There are times that people still are positive, and then on that 14th day, boom, they have a symptom of some sort. So it's not 100%, but from what the studies that they've done so far, asymptomatic patients usually after 10 days stop shedding the virus, is what we call it, which is basically you shouldn't be able to give it to others.
And early on, and this was like 3 months ago, so I mean maybe the knowledge is changed. But I heard that one difference, like one pattern between people who were dying from it versus people that were recovering or getting sick and recovering, was it seemed that people who got like a severe sore throat first before getting into their lungs seemed to do much better recovering it. And what I had understood from that was that it gave your body a chance to build up the antibodies before and is that actually true?
I haven't heard that particularly, but it kind of makes some scientific sense as far as it's attacking this part of your body first, so to speak, and your body reacts. We call them the first responders come out and attack. And if the first responders, white cells that come out and attack, don't get the job done, your body has to do more defense. And eventually it'll build up antibodies. It's kind of like how a vaccine works. If I were to do a test on you for measles, I'm assuming you've had a measles shot before, you would show that you have long-term antibodies to it, which by definition makes you immune to it. Right now, people do have antibodies, long-term antibodies for COVID, but we don't know the likelihood of them getting the virus again is less, but we don't know 100% that you're technically immune to it. So that's why we tell people, even if you test positive for long-term antibodies, even if you've had the virus before, that does not give you a get out of jail free card for another infection. As of right now, that's what we caution people. I wish I could say, hey, if you've had it or you have antibodies, you're great, but it's just not the case as of right now.
Yeah, we're learning new things.
All the time.
Talking about that theory though, there's a lot of people have gotten their tonsils removed, because of illness and sickness. And I'm wondering if this understanding about how the body sort of tries to get sick early in a non disastrous way,
right,
might kind of point to maybe it's not such a good idea overall to be removing people's tonsils as often as we do. It was just kind of thought that I had.
Right. And I don't know enough about, I'm learning a lot, and I've learned a lot about infectious disease and the immune system. I've probably learned more in the last 3 months than I did ever before, because it's just the nature of the beast right now. But I can see that, because your tonsils are made to, they're a first line of defense. They're made to catch things, and your body gets rid of them before they get into the rest of your body. So I could see, I'm curious. I want to, on our next call, I'm going to ask to see if there's been any correlation. That's really good. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
So
I mean, because I mean, maybe the whole point of your tonsils is to make you sick, but in a way that you can recover from.
right.
You know?
Alert your body that there's an issue.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your work.
Yes, that's my work.
That's your work. So what other things do you do? Like, what, do you have some hobbies? And
I don't know if you can see, I have a little Lego tree behind me. My fiance and I love Legos. That's something we do together just to kind of unwind. And my soon-to-be stepchildren like to do it too. So it's something fun and constructive to do. It's relaxing, oddly relaxing. He got a Millennium Falcon for Christmas, and he and his son put it together. I have a Yoda in the closet that we haven't done yet that we're waiting to do. So we do that. I mean, movies, I love to read. I've always loved to read. We just like to hang out and just relax. I mean, you would think we'd be sick of each other at this point, but so far so good. And
no, it's fantastic. I mean, because it's really interesting to see how such complex things are made from a whole bunch of kind of standardized pieces that you just build up, and you could
it's crazy. It's very complex, because I mean, I've done basic Lego sets before, but I've never done one that are thousands of pieces. I mean, there's an infrastructure to it. I mean, what you see on the outside looks great, but there's an infrastructure to that tree that holds it all together. And it's crazy, and it's super fun to do and super fun to figure out. And you kind of get the patterns and you learn. You know, we have a system. One person reads the instructions, and we call that the brick person. They get the pieces out and they separate them and get them ready to go. And one person is the actual person who puts it together. So like on the Millennium Falcon, that was his build. So he was the one putting it together. The treehouse was my first build. So he had me build it, and he was my brick person. So we kind of have like a system that we do.
That is awesome. Yeah, sometimes just finding the pieces takes up like half the job.
Oh yeah, that's lots of time. That is super time consuming to do that, to get it all set up and ready to go.
And especially open up too many bags too early.
Yeah, we try to do bags at a time. We try to follow the directions. I'm a little OCD about it, so we can keep up. So we've learned not to just, because we're like, okay, is this the right brick? I don't, and then if you get so far into it and you realize that's the wrong piece, well, that's a lot of backtracking to do.
Oh, so. Indeed. I know, especially when they're like off by one, and then you're like, to continue the build for like 10 steps. And then like something doesn't, and you're like, why doesn't this hook up? And you're like, oh.
Oh, that one is just, one too many. Yes. It's
And the other common mistake that I have trouble with is when it's like, build 3 of these things. And you're like,
you kind of get into like this rhythm, and you're just building them all at the same time.
Exactly. So how old will your prospective stepchildren? How old?
The oldest is 23, and she has a 3-year-old daughter, and then 21, 18, 15, 9, and 6. About to be 10 next month, and then 6.
Wow. I had a stepmom. My mom was also a stepmom. I had, stepchildren, like step siblings and stuff. So it's definitely introduces its own level of stress. Tension,
it is
complexity.
Yes, it is. But I mean, I've been very fortunate that they have a mom. I love you and I take care of you, but I have respect for the other parent, and I think we get along just fine, and the kids and I get along fine. It's all about just not overstepping boundaries. So I think we're handling that so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's, you probably could help give some good advice to other people who are having to navigate those
I mean,
issues.
the best thing is just be nice and just know that there's going to be growing pains and there's going to be times where the kids are like, you're not my mom. And I mean, that's typical kid stuff. Kids are like that anyway. So they're tiny humans that, you got to take a little extra time with.
Right, and plus, I have an 8-year-old nephew that I've been spending regular time with, and kids will say whatever they think will get the response they want, regardless of how insensitive that thing may appear to be. All they're
Exactly.
interested in is, I mean, to them, it's like pressing the buttons on a remote control randomly, trying to
Right. They want to see
get
what
the TV.
happens. Right.
Yes.
They want to
And so,
know.
you know, so with him, I keep reminding myself, don't think everything that he says is just like water washing down, um,
Right.
just water in the river. Yeah, just kind
That's
of.
it. Just don't let your emotions overreact to something because sometimes, I mean, like you said, they'll do it to push buttons and sometimes they don't realize it even. They're just being honest. Kids are honest, which is great and also sometimes not so great. But 9 times out of 10, they're just being honest and telling you how they feel outright. And I try not to make them feel bad for that because that's how they feel. I think as adults, we've learned to just kind of put the mask on sometimes and play nice, for lack of better, as my friends call it, slop sugar. That's a very Southern thing to do, slop sugar. And we forget that kids don't have that yet. They have that ability just to be who they are without the fear of judgment, I guess, that adults kind of carry that stigma. So,
Yeah, and sometimes it's reassuring because you're like, hey, I don't have to think about, is this really what you think? It's like whenever your wife asks you, hey, how's this dress look? Or how do you like my hair?
right. That's such a loaded question sometimes.
Yes, loaded question.
Kids can be honest without the fear of kind of repercussions, I guess.
Oh no, there's
It's like,
definitely
oh, they're just a
fear.
kid. They're just being honest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But if you say it and you're honest, you're being mean,
Oh yes.
right? And so I totally get that.
Um, well, so yeah, going into like the space thing, I was
Sure.
wondering, did you know that NASA is planning to land people on the moon in 2024?
No, I had recently just heard about that, and it's exciting for me because I mean I'm an 80s 90s kid, so like my first experience with space was probably the Challenger, which is probably not the best thing to remember, but it was just it's a memory. Like I know exactly where I was. I know, I just remember it so vividly, and I think also because you're a kid, it's like, wow, you can go to space. That's a cool thing, like it's so like you think it's unbelievable almost that we could go there with the technology, even in the 60s. I mean, my goodness, you watch the SpaceX launch and it's like night and day comparatively, the technology. So it's like, wow, the fact that they were able to go into space in the 60s with the limited technology they had is just, it's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I feel like that those engineers back then had a more complete understanding of the systems they built.
Oh,
Whereas,
absolutely.
yeah, whereas today, everybody is like an expert on this little bitty part, but they probably have very little understanding of the areas that are outside of their little
Right,
piece.
the complete system.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. But do you know the last time we went to the moon?
I think, was it the 70s maybe? I think.
1972.
Oh yeah, I mean that seems so far away. Like you think we would have gone more, I guess. Especially since technology has gotten better. You would think that we would, since we have the technology, why not do it? I mean, of course it's extremely expensive. I understand that. So that it's odd to me that we haven't been to the moon since the 70s. I would think that would be like a no-brainer, like, oh, we've been there before, we can go there when we want.
But information technology has gotten better. Like, I mean, like doing this, like in high school, I don't even think we had beepers. And then like I remember in college getting a beeper and then
Right.
getting a cell phone, but you know, you had to dial numbers on it and you can only use it to call people. And then like this whole iPhone thing didn't come out into what, 2010?
Yeah. I mean, we have
And
tiny computers in our hands at all times.
oh, exactly, tracking us, watching us, listening,
Everything. Yeah.
checking who our friends are and who we come in contact with.
What kind of toothpaste we use, that kind of thing.
Oh, exactly. But you know, that's not true with all technology, right? I mean,
No.
if you look at like the lawnmower, we all generally have like the same type of lawnmower. Like cutting grass has not really advanced any orders of magnitude.
Right, right.
And also like washing and drying clothes. You know, I'm still amazed that I'm still taking clothes out of the washer and putting them in the dryer. I mean,
Right.
have you ever taken clothes out of the washer and said, I wonder what I should do with these? You know, I'm just like,
Right. You know, you're right.
I
Now,
mean,
I know they have, I think there's a new, I can't remember who is making it, but I think I heard of a washer dryer combo that it washes and then dries the clothes, which I thought, why are we just now doing this? Why is this new to us? I mean, why are we just now thinking that this is the way to do it? We should have had an all-in-one machine a long time ago.
oh, exactly. And you know, with a hopper where you put the clothes in, it automatically sorts the whites from the towels, from the clothes.
Right.
And
That
then
would
it
be
automatically
amazing.
like feeds it into the washer and dryer, and then it comes out and, you know, folds it and puts it up in your dryer. I mean, like,
That
this
would
is
be
all
amazing.
possible, but
Right.
I think you would probably agree with me. This most likely will not happen in our lifetime.
Mm-mm. No, it's just not a
And
priority, I guess.
yeah, but I mean, we have the people to do it, we have the technology to do it, but unless somebody goes out there and actually makes it happen, technology like does not improve itself.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and the same thing's true with like rocket technology and space technology is that once you get a system that works well enough, and unless you're doing things to sort of push improvements, you won't ever see that system improve. I mean, like the Russians, they are still launching what's essentially the exact same Soyuz rocket that they were launching in the 1960s.
Oh, wow.
I
Like
know,
the
and
same technology.
same technology. They've done little bitty minor improvements to it over the time, and it's been extremely reliable. But it's still essentially the same capsule, the same rocket, the same everything. I mean, if you took an engineer from like the 1960s, I do not think they would be at a loss. I mean, they could start working on it just fine.
Right. That's crazy though. You would think with all the advances, you would want to make it easier, streamlined, but I guess if it's working, I guess if it's broke, don't fix it. Is there?
I know. And it's even worse than that because Yuri Gagarin, when he was like
Mhm.
the first man to circle the Earth in space, right?
Right.
So when he was on the bus taking him to the rocket to get into it, he had to go to the restroom. And so he had the bus stop and he got out of the bus and he peed on the tire or whatever.
Right.
I don't know how we got so much peeing in this conversation. This normally doesn't happen.
You take two kids from Orangefield. What do you expect?
What do you expect? But now, since that time, it has been tradition for the bus to stop in the same place, the astronauts to get out of the bus and to pee on that tire.
Oh, now it's like a superstition. It's like you have to do it if
Yes.
you want the mission to go well. That makes sense. That's hilarious though.
And it extends to like every part of their program too. Like Yuri Gagarin, the night before his flight, watched this particular movie. And every cosmonaut and astronaut that flies in Soyuz watches that movie the night before.
That's crazy. I guess they're just as superstitious as like baseball guys. I mean, it makes sense.
Well,
It's like just
but
part of.
I think on one hand, maybe it makes sense, but on the other hand, it kind of traps you where you don't feel comfortable making changes, right?
Exactly.
You are unable to improve things because you're afraid of messing something up.
Right. It does. It hampers you
Yeah.
from moving forward. That makes sense too.
And the same thing has been true of our space program. We've for the longest time we've had NASA contract out to like these big government contractors to build out space things.
Right.
And the cost of failure is so huge that really it's just another variation, that same type of mentality with what you see in the Soviet thing. It's easier for us to kind of laugh at the Soviet thing because, well, we're not Soviets. And
Right.
then
There's that.
everybody understands their own superstition.
Right.
What, and they also completely do not understand the superstition of others, which makes it
Right. Exactly.
but I think, like what Elon's doing with SpaceX is kind of driving that change. And I was wondering, you mentioned SpaceX looks so much newer and everything, and
Yes.
so much more advanced. And I was curious in what all you knew about SpaceX. Like, what are the things you've been hearing?
Well, I mean, really, when it was launching, it was in the news, and I've casually observed before that, just here and there. But of course, whenever they were doing the launch, obsessed with it. David and I, that's my fiance, he's the same age as me. So he he kind of has the same memories that I do. And to us, it was a big deal. I mean, we were super excited. Like, man, there is like a private company sending a rocket up into space. That is huge, and we're trying to get the boys in there. And we're like, man, they're shooting a rocket off into space. You know how cool that is? And they're like, yeah, okay, they're putting a rocket in space. Like, it's no big deal, but for us, that's a big deal. And then to see, the console's completely different. I mean, everything is just futuristic, what you would expect to see in a movie 10, 15 years ago of what space would be like and what privatized space travel would be. You're seeing it in person. It's come to fruition, and it's just, I mean, our mind was blown. I mean, I was just obsessed with it. I looked at all the pictures. I wanted to see the panels. I'm like, this is crazy. They don't have any buttons, flips. There's no flashing, blinking lights. I mean, it's all fully automated touch screen. We were just blown away by the technology. And it's like, wow, okay, we've had this capability. Why haven't they implemented it this whole time? Kind of thing. But again, government versus private. Private, Elon can do what he wants with his money. And so I get that that's part of it.
Well,
Budget.
even the government contractors that NASA uses also are private, like Boeing and Lockheed
Right.
and what have you. In fact, do you remember Jeff Perkins?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, so he works at Lockheed, and he's been like a engineering program manager for like the Orion space capsule that carried the astronauts to around the moon. So
that's awesome.
I know. I was like, wow, at least one of us went out there and did something like that.
Right? Way to go, Orangefield.
Yeah, go Orangefield.
That's awesome. I had no idea. That's so cool, though.
I know. So
the technologies there so is it kind of like the same thing with the Russians? It's just, okay, it's not broken, let's not fix it. And is it a fear factor, or is it a money factor, or a combination of both, do you think?
I don't know. I think there's definitely a fear factor because, if it explodes or what have you, they plan to do an unmanned test flight. That could be really disastrous. And I think that leads them to wanting to take every safety precaution.
Right.
So it's like whenever you do that cost benefit analysis, it's like every single thing you do, you're like, well, if we don't do this, it could explode. If we don't do this, it could explode. So you're not in a way you're not in a good place to like make those cost benefit analysis, because when you make the cost infinite, everything has benefit.
Right. That's true.
So it's like a big challenge for them. I think in some ways, SpaceX going off and doing their own things is really an opportunity and a threat, because an opportunity from a standpoint is let them do the challenges. And if they figure out something, maybe we could do that. But the threat from the standpoint is, what if they are astronomically successful? They'll just gobble up the entire market, and it's like nothing we could do. But maybe that threat produces a more reasonable response from them, and they come up with some type of competing offering, and they have to compete on price. the thing though is like Boeing and Lockheed, that whole, what was it, military industrial complex that Eisenhower talked about. And,
Right.
I mean, they spent a lot of money on, marketing and on lobbying and, these types of things. And, I don't think a lot of people make decisions at those levels based upon what's the best technology or what to produce the best, but what to get me reelected.
Oh yeah. I mean, trust me, everything's politicized. Everything now is politicized, mostly to our detriment, I think, as human beings. But yeah, I totally get it. It's all about the election cycle. And okay, is this gonna make the majority upset, or is it gonna make the majority happy? How's that going to affect me when the polls come around? So, man, I never thought about it like that, but that's totally true. It's with everything now, even space. I mean, it's all about what's going to make people happy and what they're going to do when they vote, I guess. Man, never thought about that.
Yeah, but it's not even people happy about space or not. It's, how many jobs will you have in my district? And,
Right.
will those people give to my campaign to get reelected so I have the marketing budget to go and get the votes that I need? And, because it costs a lot to run a campaign for like senator or, representative or what have you.
Right. It's
And,
expensive.
yeah. And, if I'm going to end your program and give it away to this other person that's way more efficient, you may cut the jobs in my district. You may stop giving to my campaign.
Right.
And it's not really clear the other people are going to pick that up. And, at the end of the day, I get elected by people, and those people tend to elect me if they have high paying jobs.
Exactly.
Regardless of if those jobs are actually the most efficient or the best use of their time or resources.
If it's feeding their family, then that's what they have to do. No, that totally makes sense.
I know, but it creates a cost, right?
Right.
It's like, it's sacrificing the future in order to have a slightly more comfortable present.
Right. It's that instant gratification thing that we've all grown accustomed to now, I think. People can't see the big picture anymore.
And I guess from your standpoint, what do you think would take to change that, to get people to actually look at the bigger picture and the longer range things? Like, I mean, what are some things that could be done to get people thinking along those lines?
Gosh. I mean, honestly, people getting factual information and quit getting all of their information from social media is my biggest, for any number of subjects. I see people are seeing even memes and they're relating it to them it's fact, and that to me is scary. The lack of fact checking that we're doing as citizens, that scares me, because you want to get the facts out there, and there's a lot of fear with a number of things going on in the world. And I think, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but I think people are more comfortable with the fear of the possibility of something bad happening rather than the reality of the situation, or what we can do, even small tiny increments to make it better or safer, whatever it is, in the big picture. I think that's it. I think people are just short-sighted, and in general, I'm guilty of it. I think everyone's guilty of it, but I think just staying short-sighted, and like you said, it's comfortable. We're used to this. This is what we know. Why are we going to change it? So I think it's it. I think you're right. It's taking the chance, getting people to take the chance to say, you know what, right now it's not going to benefit, but 10, 20, 50 years from now we'll benefit from this, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Well, about the whole fact thing, I was just having a conversation earlier today, and I wanted to run something by you to see if it resonated with you as well. I feel like that in today's society, everything is really much an appeal to authority. Like, if we have a question, we Google it, we look at what comes back, and we find information, we say that must be true. We
Right.
don't say, we say who's saying it sometimes, and sometimes we don't even say that, but we
Right.
don't talk about evidence. We don't talk about how is it provable, how could you test it.
Right.
You know, we don't reason or argue with it. It's like we ask a question, we get an answer, we move on, and it's like
Right.
we're just parroting what we have, and we kind of put that answer out there as our own, and we're unintentionally amplifying something that probably has no proof either. You know, it's just like,
Right. Right.
and so really, how do you get people to actually say, um, you know, kind of figure out, you know, kind of put an emphasis on evidence and testability and validation and kind of like all these things. I mean, like the mask thing.
Right.
You know, I go out there, I say, hey, Talisa, she's LVN, she's out there on COVID. She says, wear a mask, so you should wear a mask, you know. I
Right.
mean, that's like an appeal to authority, but as opposed to going and say, you know, the virus needs to be in droplets to go out there, a mask, while it won't, it'll let a virus through, you know, that's not going to hurt you, but because the virus is going to be like damaged in a way and won't be able to, but you know, in the droplet can't make it through the mask because it gets absorbed. And so it saves you. And people are like, oh, you know, that does kind of make sense. You know, I
Right.
mean, like, how do you move the conversation where it's, let's reason it out. Let's, as opposed to, you know, oh, I have 20 people saying this and you have 20 people saying that. And we could basically just choose whatever reality we want without having to
Right. Right. No,
listen.
that I think you have to just kind of, I don't want to say stand up to people, but be afraid to challenge their perspective. Don't be afraid to challenge their perspective. You know, I I know people that I consider to be rational, intelligent people, and we have some fundamental disbeliefs on certain things. And for me, it's like, okay, I understand how you tick and what makes you think this way. But if you can show me some scientific evidence to back that up, you can, you'll change my mind. I'm a facts person. I'm a nurse, so I want a rationale. You know, I'm not going to blindly, if a doctor says, give this medicine, and it doesn't make rational sense to me, even though I'm not a doctor and I never claimed to be, but I know enough that it's like, okay, you know what? This person, I don't know. Always ask. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to get the answer. Hey, you know, we're doing this for this, for this. Oh, okay. That makes logical, rational sense to me why we're doing this. We're doing step 1, step 2, step 3, and this is why it's working. Okay, that makes perfect sense to me. This is the scientific reasoning behind it. And I think if you just, I think you just have to get over that fear of hurting people's feelings or having them judge you for the way you think or how you feel. I think we're so afraid of polarizing each other. You know, I'm guilty of it too. You know, I kind of keep my opinions to myself. I'm not a very political person. I'm not on social media, you know, expressing my opinion all the time. But if people ask me, I'm honest with them. So I think I'm part of the problem that I don't express how I feel or say, hey, look, this is the reason why I believe this. A, B, and C, science shows or studies show that this, and this is why we have to do this, and this, I guess. I think challenging, like you said, we're just comfortable in that we don't want to polarize people. You don't want to start an argument with people. You don't want to alienate people. But at the end of the day, facts are facts. And if it's true, it's true. And if it's not, it's not. And I can respect your opinion and I can respect your point of view, but sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong. And I don't know. I think it's just the fear of challenging someone, I
Yeah.
guess, is the best way to put it.
But, and I wonder how much it has to do also with the way we do school. You know, it's kind of weird. We take people who are in their prime for actually learning, and we sit them in desk all the time, and we just have them read stuff out of the book and regurgitate what's out of there. You know, as
Right.
opposed to kind of, you know, doing more direct observational things and
Right.
having like we have a big opportunity to get them to ask questions and to
Mhm.
come up with a process for answering those questions. And you know, if in school we could kind of focus on teaching that process as opposed to some facts, it feels like that may be a step towards creating a population that is more rooted in what's the process by which we find out what's true and what's not, or that we
Correct.
can challenge certain assumptions versus not. Like, it's like we don't even have the fundamental tools. You know, it's like
Mhm.
we're trying to you know, talk about something theoretical and complex, but we don't even know, we don't even have an alphabet. You know, we're
Right.
missing we're we're
And
missing like the basics of how
Mhm.
to actually figure out something for ourselves.
Exactly. And like you said, I think because school's so standardized now, it's like kids don't have that freedom not to challenge authority, but just to say, okay, so I'm not understanding this. Can you explain to me why this is this? You know, not because I don't believe you or anything, because I truly want to understand this is how this works. I mean, I can read all day that the sky is blue, and I can see that the sky is blue, but if a kid were to ask the teacher, well, like, can you explain to me why the sky is blue? That I think gets misinterpreted to sarcasm or, challenging authority, as opposed to, hey, I'm genuinely curious. Okay, I know that the sky is blue and I accept that as true fact, but can you explain to me why that is? And I think that teachers are handcuffed so much by some of the regulations and the way they have to teach certain things that they don't have the freedom to have a discussion with the kids and say, hey, this is, tell me what you think. And, they, like you said, they have to regurgitate facts because that's what is making that's how it is right now. They're regurgitating facts as opposed to using critical thinking skills and able to ask questions and not challenge authority, but just challenge the way teachers and students are able to interact with each other. I think is, I mean, you get that freedom a little bit in college to a certain extent, but I feel like the education system now for, kindergarten through 12th grade, they don't have the luxury to be able to do that. And that makes it makes me sad because some of the best things I remember about being in high school or being in college are the discussions that we would have open with our teachers. And, and the one thing I can say about our school, I mean, we were a tiny little school, it's still not the biggest school ever, but I remember being able to sit in class and have discussions with the teacher without it being an issue. We weren't being rude, we weren't being disrespectful. We were asking questions and we were able to discuss it with our, authoritative figure, our teacher, and we were free to discuss things and ask questions and to ask why or how it be explained or sometimes not explained. We would just talk, and that was okay too. But I think that, like you said, it's kind of left the school system here recently, which is it's sad because that's part of the best times, that I remember having in school were those kind of days. It maybe wasn't a lot of book work or busy work, but I learned that day. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And also, you know, teachers being able or comfortable not knowing and basically saying, I don't know why the sky is blue. You know, and kind of like exploring with their students, like, well, what are some ways we could find out? And, what are some other questions that would be good asking? Like, for example, is the sky blue all over the earth, or does it matter where you are? Is the
Right.
sky blue at all times of the day, or all seasons of the year, or during all weather? And then also asking questions like, is the sky blue on all planets? Like if we were on Venus and we were looking up, would the sky be blue there? And
Exactly.
like, why not? And it might be, that it actually may be more interesting for teachers not to know, right? Where
Exactly.
it's like, how does a teacher find out new stuff? Like, how is new stuff found out? And because that's like ultimately the key skill that people need to take away from all their schooling is not some book of knowledge that, oh good, you're set. It's
Because we need the new knowledge.
right, that life of learning and exploration and engagement, and it's really, the process is more important than any a date from history or scientific fact or something.
Right. That's memorization. You can memorize all those facts, but to be able to draw your own conclusions and find those facts on your own, or to even come up with an idea or a question that a teacher's never even thought about asking. Or like you said, maybe the teacher doesn't know, and it's okay for the teacher not to know, because then together as a group, you're exploring that idea and we're like, okay, so let's find out. Let's find out why the sky is blue and maybe it's not blue in Venus. You know, let's look that up together. Let's learn this together. And I think the better educators know that. I mean, like I said, I was very fortunate to go to the school that I went to. I mean, there were some pretty black and white, things, and it wasn't perfect, but in general, I felt comfortable not challenging authority, but asking a question and being received with, well, let's discuss it, or hey, I don't know, let's find out, kind of thing. I mean, this is back when we're using, encyclopedias and card catalogs. So it wasn't that instant gratification that they have now. Like you said, you can go to Google and look up anything that you want, whether you get factual information or not, the information's there. So I like that whole thought process of it's okay if the teacher doesn't know the answer because they're human beings like the rest of us, but together as a group we can figure it out. And I like that part of it too. I mean, for me, I learn better that way too. So
I exactly, yeah. I think that's true. Okay, so kind of taking the topic back, when you
oh yeah,
think about
space.
this, when you think about the future of humanity, like
Mhm.
you think out like 100, 200, 500 years, do you see humanity still mainly on Earth taking like day trips or week trips to places? Or do you fundamentally see at some point humanity finding the capability to actually create new settlements of essentially people that could live independently on different worlds throughout the solar system?
Well, I think that as human beings, that's kind of what we've done for for all of humanity. We've gone to new places. We've, gone to new parts of the world and discovered new parts of the world. So I think that the next natural step is to do that in space. And I think that drive to explore will never leave humanity. And also it's just going to become a necessity because it's just a fact. Eventually the earth will be depleted of its natural resources, and out of necessity we're going to have to find another way to live and to maintain our lifestyle. So I think it's just the natural evolution of what we have to do in order to maintain our species. I mean, if you're at your house in your backyard and you lost your water source, you would move on to find another water source. And if it's not in your backyard, you have to move outside of your backyard. And that's essentially what we'll be doing. We're eventually going to have to find other places that are habitable to ensure the, the preservation of our species. I think it just makes kind of sense to me somehow that that's what we're going to do. It's never crossed my mind that it's not something that we wouldn't do. It seems to be like it's our only recourse at some point. We have to move on from Earth. Now I think the idea of vacationing to another planet would be super cool, and I'm totally down to do that. And that would be great if we could, go to Mars or Saturn or whatever just for fun, just to say, hey, I'm going to Saturn this summer. Like some people say they're going to Europe or Disney. I think that would be awesome. And I think recreation wise, it would be cool to do that. But I think that we're going to have to move beyond recreation and look for sustaining planets that we can inhabit at some point, or do something, maybe not a planet, or maybe it's a space station or something that we can do to eventually we're gonna have to. I feel like I think we have no choice.
Well, I don't think everybody agrees with that sentiment, and I've definitely talked to some. And so I like to give you some of the reactions that I've gotten from other people to kind of see what your thoughts are about them. One is the idea that in the past, through colonizing and Europeans going around the world and displacing and destroying
Right.
like native people and what have you. I mean, Christopher Columbus, I don't know much about his life. Okay, so maybe he was a bad guy or a good guy, but in my mind,
Who knows?
he's the founder of the New World, right? And
Right.
that was a good thing because that's the world I live in. If he didn't do that, who knows if I would be here, right? So
Right.
that's like my thought with Christopher Columbus.
Right.
And you know, maybe I should do some more research into him. But I mean, I think regardless of what else he did in his life, he did that, right? I mean,
Right.
he did convince the Queen of Spain, sorry, the Queen of Spain to fund his trip over here. And
Hmm.
you know, he opened the Europeans' eyes to, hey, you know, there's this huge landmass. We should, and then you know that led on to the following exploration and the
Right.
kind of you know, colony building thing. But for some people, you know, that whole what had been looked at as being like a really good and glorious and wonderful thing, you know, has been kind of looked at with a little deeper, nuanced view of, you know, well, we made the buffalo go extinct, and we
Right.
killed the Indians, and you know, we're um, you know, just all this other good stuff, and so people are like, well, you know, should we be doing that same thing with space too? I mean,
Right.
I don't think there's any native peoples that we know about,
That we know
but
about. Well, I think
yeah,
we learn from history. We learn, hopefully, we learn from our mistakes. And if we do find life on another planet, that is, we hopefully have the respect for it. You know, like you said, I mean, I grew up, you know, we were relatively the same age. You know, Christopher Columbus was, he found the New World, and without Christopher Columbus, some of us wouldn't be here. And while in that is a good thing, a lot of bad things happen because of that. So I think if we respect the the land and the people or the creatures, depending on what they are, um, that's different. You take it into account. Hopefully, we learn from the past mistakes, and we just don't go in and, you know, annihilate an entire planet full of creatures because we want to take it over. I think maybe we do it with a little more respect because we've learned from history that, okay, in the long run, that wasn't the best way to handle things, I guess, maybe. So if we can do it respectfully, I suppose, if there are inhabitants on that planet, I would feel if someone came to our planet and did the same thing, maybe it would be like, okay, hey, you know what? Let's either leave you guys alone or let's work together kind of thing. You know, maybe the best way. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to ever be perfect, but hopefully we learned from our mistakes. Yes.
I I think we step number one is remembering them,
Right. Right.
but
Exactly.
also we should remember the things we did right too.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Remember the good thing. The takeaway is don't do the bad things again. Don't repeat the bad things, but do the good things again. I mean, I think that sounds like common sense, but I don't know if that's allowed anymore. So,
But the other thing I've heard was, you know, we messed up the Earth. Why would
yeah,
we mess up the moon too? Or you know,
right,
what would choose your place in space?
right. Again, it's one of those things. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's try to do the right things, and hopefully, in the next 100, 200 years, we have a way to do things better. You know, I think people do the best they can in the moment that they can, you know, with what they have in the moment. But I think it's our responsibility to take the good things and try to make them better and do them in a better way, a safer way, a more environmentally people friendly way. So in the long run, we don't have this same problem. We're not just, okay, so we've depleted Earth. So now we're going to go to Venus, and now Venus is depleted. So now we have to keep moving on. You know, at 500 years from now, that may not be a problem. There may be infinite places that we can go. But as it stands right now, we know that's not going to work. We can't keep doing the same things over and over. So, like you said, it's take the good things and get rid of the bad things. And hopefully that's what happens.
Um, so normally the last question I ask people is, if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space? But you already said you'd go to space. So I'd
Oh,
like to focus on the safety and affordability aspects of that question, if you don't mind.
sure.
Um, before you would be willing to go to, say, orbit or to the moon or to Mars or wherever, how safe would it need to be? And, it's kind of hard to kind of create a metric for safety. But one metric that I think is kind of intuitive to understand is like how many people would have to go before you without an incident before you felt comfortable. Is that like 1 million, 100,000, 2?
I don't even know. I mean, I would hope it would get to the point where it'd be like it's not that big of a difference than just hopping on an airplane and going on a ride. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's risk in anything that we do. I mean, they say, the old saying is, you're safer in a plane than you are in a car, and all that. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I would definitely want it to be pretty smooth before I took the chance with my family or myself, but I don't know if I would put a number on it. I think it would depend on the science and the facts and success rates, maybe, I guess. I mean, sure, 1 million would be great, but I would think I'd want to be in that first million before it got to that point. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I never
Maybe
thought
like 1,000, or like maybe 1,000 or a few hundred,
a few
few
hundred
dozen.
thousand. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely want to see several thousand people at least do it a few times before, you know, which is odd because I'm sure people have the same kind of conversation when flights happened. I will never get on an airplane. There are people like my grandmother. She never learned to drive a car. She would never get on an airplane. That kind of technology terrified her. So hopefully we're a little more open-minded, and like you said, we're able to get more facts at our fingertips than before. So yeah, a few thousand, I'd say, before I do it.
And then on the affordability side, there's many different ways to look at affordability. One's like absolute cost, and that's kind of like a difficult thing because you have like inflation and what have you. But another way to look at affordable is as a percent or multiple of your yearly earnings, right?
Right.
So, if, for example, hypothetical, a week-long trip to orbit, where you can like stay in orbit, experience free fall, and you get to float, and you get to see the Earth, and you could be like a space cruise, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Would you? I mean, like, how
Mm.
affordable would it need to be for you to consider doing something like that? Would it be like you'd be willing to spend an entire year's worth of salary? Would it have to be less than that? Would you be willing to spend like 5 or 10 years worth of salary? I mean, like, what's
You
your
know,
sense of affordability?
I think it would depend, like you said, I think it would depend on, I mean, if I had the money, I'd do it in a heartbeat kind of thing. Like if I could, I would do it. Now, if it became normalized and it was something people were doing more often, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. It's so hard to even think about, you know, having that ability to just say, hey, I'm going to go orbit the Earth for a week on my vacation. You know, I don't know. I don't know, because I know the cost too to do that is exponentially more than taking a flight to Europe. So I don't even know. Like, I don't know if I could put a number on it. If I had the money, I'd do it. Let me put it that way. If I could
I
afford it,
think
I'd do it.
my prediction is before 2030,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to do a suborbital flight, where you go above the Earth's atmosphere and you get to see the curvature of the Earth, the blackness of space. You have a few
Kind of the
moments of,
tourist.
as a
Kind of
tourist,
like
so
a tourist thing. Yeah.
yeah, you have a few moments of free fall. Oh, and by the way, maybe you land halfway around the world and you get to go have a regular vacation afterwards.
That would be
Um,
cool.
yeah, I think the cost of doing that by the time it's 2030, there's some things that like SpaceX is doing down in Boca Chica, Texas, that I think could make that as cheap as a first class ticket to New Zealand, which is like, $10,000 or something like that.
Heck yeah. I would totally spend $10,000 to do that. It would be worth every penny. No question asked.
Yeah,
Mhm.
in 2030 we should have a high school Orangeville reunion taking such trips.
Exactly. That would be amazing. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
10,000 easily. Easily 10,000 would be totally worth it. 20,000 would be worth it, I would think, for me.
I know. I think it would have to be in the tens. Anytime you start getting up to, the cost of a house, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, that makes me nervous. I mean, would I spend $100,000 if I were a millionaire? No questions asked. But, as a normal working nurse, 10,000 would be, I mean, a lot. I mean, people spend that on a wedding. People spend that on vacation. I'd spend $10,000 to go into space. No questions asked. That's a good number.
That is a good number. And between Virgin Galactic, Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin, and Elon Musk, SpaceX, plus a few other players, assuming the world doesn't pull itself apart in the next 10 years,
we'll have the opportunity.
I think we'll have the opportunity.
And of course, if there's competitors, that means there's competitive pricing too. So you have that as a consumer, I guess it would work out for us. The more that's, that are in the race, the better it works out for us in the long run. So it'll be like anything else, competitive pricing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We just need to actually get them off the ground and get them flying people.
Exactly. It's crazy. I mean, I never thought as a kid. I mean, I guess you do think as a kid, like, I mean, I love Back to the Future. It's just one of my favorite movies. And, when they go into the future and they have all the flying cars and all that, I remember thinking as a kid, like, man, that can happen. That can really happen. But to see it as an adult, through adult eyes, thinking, man, this can really happen. We could just go up in space just to go up in space. Just because we want to check it out. We want to be a tourist. It's just a new way to explore. That would be awesome. I mean, it makes me feel like a little kid again. Like, that is super exciting to me,
I see a generational thing. I had, right before the COVID-19 lockdown started, I ran into one of my son's classmates and her mom at the gasoline pump, and before the COVID-19 thing, I was going up to random strangers to do interviews. So I'm like, hey, can I do an interview? And I got to this question and the mom's like, absolutely. And the daughter's like, no, I don't think so. And there's like this generational thing,
It is a total generation. Like I said, David and I were so excited about SpaceX. We were watching, we're like, oh man, it's delayed, like really excited about it. And when it happened, we're like screaming for the kids, come in the living room, you got to check this out. They're putting a rocket in space and all this stuff. And they're just like, yeah, okay, a rocket in space, big deal, But you're right, it's a generational thing. That wasn't, I mean, for them, it's probably just, okay, that's life. That's no big deal for them. But to us, that's a huge thing. The fact that we can go to space is huge for us. So I definitely see the generational thing too, for sure.
Which is concerning, because if they don't want to go, it's not going to happen.
Exactly. It's going to be up to us to make it happen. But I think with JPL and with Elon doing what he's doing, I think it has sparked an interest in the younger generation, because they want to get on board with that. It's exciting to them. So I have hope there, because I know there are young, brilliant minds that are into that, and they want to go to space and they want to push it and do things that we've never done before. So they're out there. We just have to encourage them to stay that course, I guess.
I know, they're like there's a little ember. We need to collect the embers together and get the flame going.
Exactly. So hopefully with everything that's going on, it'll spark their interest too.
We're talking about JPL, they're sending a rover to Mars, should be any day now, like sometime this week. And that little rover is going to have a little helicopter.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And so it'd be a remotely controlled helicopter that they could go and fly around on Mars. I mean, the rover is considerably bigger than the little bitty helicopter, but it's just kind of neat. I mean, here we are having a helicopter on another planet.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I remember when we went to Mars. I mean, we put something on Mars. That was huge too. Oh my gosh, we're putting something on another planet. Like, we're getting there slowly but surely. It's happening. All the things that we read about and saw movies about, when we were kids, it's happening, and that's crazy to me and exciting too. I mean, I do. When I talk about space, and I see it in your face too, it's like feeling like a little kid again. That, that happiness and joy from something completely new, you know? I think that's, for me, the best part of it, because I do. I feel like a kid again when I talk about space, because it's cool. It's space, you know?
Yeah, it's something new and different. It's not the, uh, oh, uh, you know, do I get to save 5 cents per gallon by pumping up gas in this place?
Exactly. Did I remember to bring my mask with me today, when I went to the grocery store? That sort of thing. Just, it's a break from the kind of everyday mundane that we're going through. And it gives you a sense of hope too, you know, to think that, my goodness, we could be flying in spaceships. I mean, how cool would that be to live out all your like little kids Star Wars fantasies, Star Trek fantasies, like all the things. I mean, it gives you the possibility and hope for not just space exploration, but just the technology that came with all that stuff that we saw, the science fiction stuff that we kind of grew up with, to see that some of that can happen, not just for space, but for across all sorts of technologies. So I think for me, that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, going back to what we're talking about with education and what have you, just the question of, could you do this thing differently, or what's the real goal, and is this the best way to get there, and kind of thinking along those lines. I mean, whenever you have to go to Mars and design a helicopter that can fly by itself in a much thinner atmosphere with less gravity, with an environment that's difficult to test in,
Right.
That kind of pushes you to look at something we've taken for granted, like flying, and
Yeah.
look at it in a whole different way. And whenever you do that, you don't always, in fact, seldom you do it, but sometimes you come across something that's revolutionary.
Exactly. Like you said, navigate it, because that just brings up the whole other thing. We're going to if we go to different planets, like you said, the atmosphere is different, the air is different, things are different. It's not just getting there, it's how are we going to maneuver while we're there? How are we going to have sustainability, and how are we going to fly a little tiny helicopter around Mars? That's a whole different set of technology that they have to come up with. So I think it's like it's a snowball effect. And I think if we keep that momentum going, it's going to go wide open at some point. I hope. I mean, I hope that's what we do with it, because if not, it's a waste of intelligence and creativity. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Talisa, I've had so much fun talking to you.
Oh,
We
you
should
too.
definitely not wait 25 years before talking again.
Exactly. Exactly. It was great
Um,
talking to you.
and was there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of. I think we kind of went all over the place. It was great. It was nice to kind of share ideas.
Yeah, exactly. I think doing that's important, and especially across like different disciplines and different careers and
Right.
different
Exactly.
places with people on Earth. It's just
Right. One day I may get to be a space nurse. You never know. How cool would that be?
absolutely. That would be fantastic.
That would be amazing. I can live out all of my Star Trek dreams.
Indeed. Yes, engage. Um, well, thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. All the best to you and your family. It was nice to see you again.
Thank you. Okay, well, see you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.